1 Edward 1029, copy, threatening traffic.
Copy, moving route.
Edward 1029, if you can please respond to 2020 McNeil Street, Lakeview.
Copy. If you still have run on, get the ATO information first.
Welcome to Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey. I'm Brad Carlyon, your Navajo County attorney, and my partner is
Casey Clark, Navajo County Sheriff.
For this episode of Shooting Straight, we're very pleased to have as our guest the new Navajo County Superior Court Presiding Judge, Bob Higgins. Judge, that's a mouthful to get out, but what is a presiding judge?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me today. It's good to be here. And so presiding judge is in charge basically of the judicial branch of the government in Navajo County. So what happens in the courts, case flow, probation, juvenile detention facility, those are the major responsibilities. Personnel and probation as well.
So
Does it also include, as a presiding judge, are you, because I know there's a presiding JP, but are you over the JPs then also as default? Or?
I think so, technically. There's also a presiding JP, but I think the hierarchy of things, ultimately, if there was a problem with the JPs, it would come up to the presiding judge.
Okay.
So essentially, you get to be the manager of the judicial system in Navajo County?
Yes. In a nutshell, that's what it is. Yes.
And keep your cases caught up.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's besides your regular caseload, the administrative part of it is just extra duties.
So how does one become a presiding judge?
It's appointed by the Supreme Court. So Judge Rickle was the presiding judge the last 8 years, and she decided to not do it anymore. And then the Supreme Court last summer interviewed the other judges and somehow decided to pick me. So,
why don't you describe in more detail exactly the judicial system and all its components here in Navajo County? You know, people have heard of the courts, but there's so much more than just the courts.
yes, well, the structure of it, I guess you'd start with the lower courts, the justices of the peace. There are 6 of them. We have one in Kanta, Winslow, Holbrook, Snowflake, Taylor, Show Low, and Pine Top. And so those take care of misdemeanors, smaller claims under $20,000 total, and for civil claims. And then anything higher than that on the civil side would go to, and certain specific areas of law like real estate would go to Superior Court, and then felonies are in Superior Court. And so jurisdictionally, all the judges, all 4 Superior Court judges have jurisdiction over any felony cases in Navajo County.
Would a JP have any jurisdiction over felonies?
Just initially, they can do charging type of preliminary hearings, things like that, but they just then send it up to the Superior Court.
In some areas have municipal courts, like you hear the City of Phoenix Court. Do we have municipal courts in Navajo County? And if we do you have any jurisdiction over those?
Yeah, so I think in Navajo County there are city courts that take care of mostly traffic or city ordinance type offenses, and so those city courts, usually in Navajo County anyway, they're also the justice of the peace who does the civil magistrate type of court. So technically, yes, I think the presiding judge would have some say over those as well, although we really don't see much of anything on that side of the ledger.
One of the big differences between a justice of the peace and a Superior Court judge, of course, is a Superior Court judge has to have a law degree, and JPs are elected and can have a law degree or they can not have one.
Right, in Arizona and a few other states, mostly western states, you just have to be 18. I shouldn't say just have to be. You have to be 18 and a citizen to be a JP. You just run for it that way. But Superior Court judge has to, like you say, have a law degree, pass the bar, and have practiced for at least 5 years.
Oh, really? Practice for 5
before
years?
you can run
You were
or be appointed.
starting to talk about some of the jurisdictional matters that be heard in JP court and in the Superior Court. And I think everybody sees and reads from movies to papers about the criminal side, so they're familiar with that. But what are the other kind of cases that you hear as a Superior Court judge?
So civil cases, for example, contract cases are maybe the most common type of civil case, or personal injury cases also come to us. Probate is in Superior Court. Dependencies are in Superior Court. Juvenile cases are in Superior Court. Let's see what.
Can't forget
That's
divorces. That's probably the one
and
that
I was going to say,
many
and the one
people
that
touch.
takes up maybe the most time on the civil side of things would be, what's referred to in the umbrella of family law. So divorces or post-dissolution actions with child support, child custody, things like that. So.
And then, you talked about 7 justice courts, and they're different geographic locations throughout the county. Are there different geographic locations for your Superior Courts?
There are not. We're all in Holbrook. We do have a courtroom in Sholo right now that's not used a lot. It's okay. It's functional, but it's not a great courtroom. So one of the things I want to do as presiding judge is to have a courtroom that's respectable and nice for South County. I think it's long overdue to be able to service the citizens of Navajo County with a decent Superior Court that's full-time.
Would you use that for any type of hearing, or mainly domestic type, or would you use it for criminal? Or
I think initially, because we're going to have to do it, gradually. I think initially we'd probably do more domestic cases, so family law cases and civil, and some criminal, South County criminal cases. And then as we expand, it would be a full-time court doing just what the courts are doing in Holbrook.
So it would be advantageous and beneficial to those living in the southern part of the county. Instead of driving the hour plus to Holbrook, they could just go to Sholo.
Yes, which I think would be great. It'll save citizens a lot of money and time. For example, if you're in the South County and you hire a lawyer on an hourly basis, now they drive to and from Holbrook. That costs you money, and so it's gonna cut down on costs, legal costs for citizens. It's gonna cut down on travel time for lawyers. It'll be much more convenient for South County citizens
and jurors also.
and jurors as well.
Oh.
Yeah,
Unless you live in Kayenta.
Right.
right.
Besides just having the physical courtroom, are there other components that you have to get into play to open and create a Superior Court down here in South County?
There will be. For example, we'll want county attorney's office in South County, which I think you already have, so that'll work. And the public defender has an office down here. The legal defender has an office down here. Most of the private practice attorneys are in the South County. Probation has at least one office. I think they have one in Sholo and one in Pine Top. So that should be okay. We may have to consolidate it or make sure that they have sufficient resources that are close enough to the court.
I have been in a courtroom once or twice for some reason, for good reasons. But there's always the court clerk. How would the court clerk in her office fit into this? Because right now you have all your records up in Holbrook, all of her staff in Holbrook, all filings have to happen in Holbrook. Will that change too under your plan?
Yes. So I think that's one of the big things. The big components is just practically speaking, if people can file things in South County, that'll help quite a bit. So we're working on that as well. And all the courts in Arizona are going to be using e-file shortly, within the next 6 months. So that'll take care of that problem as well, because everything can be filed, electronically.
One of the questions that always get asked, especially here in Navajo County with some of our financial challenges, will this end up costing more money, or do you think it'll be a savings or neutral?
I think because the county has its own public works section or division, they'll be able to do all the work on the building, and the buildings we're looking at, the county owns. So it shouldn't cost too much up front, but
What about personnel?
but
Ongoing
oh yeah,
costs?
so and over time, I think it'll save the county money as well, because you have people who live down here and can work down here. But over time, we need to look at security and point of entry security and secure building. So there will be some costs involved in that, especially personnel.
But we would have those costs anyhow.
And they're gonna, yeah, right.
And why is that?
Well, because if you have court in, Holbrook, you're going to have those costs. If you have a court in South County, you're going to have those costs. But even if you didn't have a superior court in South County, the justice courts would still, by Supreme Court guidelines that are coming into effect shortly, they're going to have the same type of security measures in place. So
The Arizona Supreme Court's mandating enhanced security?
yes.
What is that enhancement they're mandating?
So there'll be, for every court, even the city courts and the justice courts, they're going to have the same type of security we'd have at a superior court. So when you come in, you'd be monitored like an airport screener, and there'd be personnel there to check your bags and do all the things that you'd have to do when you come into superior court. So by doing it this way, if we have a superior court in South County, we can probably combine with the justice court and have one point of entry for both courts. So it'll save money in the long run.
And you don't foresee having to hire outside of the security that's going to be mandated anyhow, new employees like clerks or other administrative staff members?
I don't think so. I think we can use the same amount of people we have because we have 4 divisions. So it'll just be a matter of dividing them up. And there are people who work at the county that live in South County, so save them some time as well.
Well, as we've talked about the clerk of the court, which is an integral part of the Superior Court, is the presiding judge, even though that's a elected official, aren't you still kind of over the clerks as a judge or presiding?
Well, there is a little inbuilt conflict there because you have an elected official who's the head clerk, and then you have the presiding judge, who, you're right, technically you're in charge of that as well, but there's some kind of territorial issues there. So, but happily in Navajo County, we all try to work together, and we usually are able to work those things out.
Good.
You'd also mentioned early on in some of your responsibilities is overseeing probation. What do you do to oversee probation?
Mostly that is personnel. Sometimes there are personnel problems that come to the attention of the presiding judge. I've only been doing it about a month now, so I don't know. I haven't had any of those yet, but I know that the presiding judge has to directly be involved in personnel. For example, we had the chief probation officer was hired by the state probation office down in Phoenix, and so right now we have a vacancy there. We have an acting chief probation officer right now, but within the next few months we're going to have to fill that spot officially and have a permanent probation officer, and that would be my duty to hire that person.
So, don't want to put you on the spot because you haven't been doing it a month, but do you know how many probation officers we have in Navajo County? Or?
Yeah, on an adult probation there, I asked this question as soon as I got in, so I do know. There are 29 adult probation officers and 14 juvenile probation officers.
Do you think that's we're always short-staffed? Is that enough for the caseload that Navajo County has? Or
apparently, in talking to probation, they do seem like they need some more help. That's what they're telling me. They have big caseloads, and as you know, Navajo County's 10,000 square miles, so I think that's the main difficulty that faces them, is that some of them have to travel a lot to check up on all their probationers. So I don't know. I need to study that more as to how much each officer has as far as a caseload goes, and see if that's appropriate.
Well, I know that whether it's the public defender or judges, there's only so many cases the Supreme Court says you can only have X amount. Is there the same guidelines on probation?
Yes.
Where
Yeah, there is. I don't know exactly what the number is per probation officer, but I think we're close to it in Navajo County.
And it depends on the nature of the people that they're seeing. If they're on intensive probation, it's a lower number than standard probation.
Right, yeah. So intensive probation, they check up on them much more often. They do drug tests more often. They have to do much more close supervision. So
Casey oversees the jail for adults. And you said that you oversee juvenile detention, which is basically the jail for juveniles, as a presiding judge.
yes,
So you and Casey have things to talk about when it comes to how to run those type of facilities.
we do. We need to have lunch one of these days and talk about that. But Casey's the expert. I would not. My philosophy, I think, is let the people who really know what they're doing do it, and don't get in their way and get competent people.
Well, if you buy lunch, I'll meet with you.
But as the presiding judge, what do you do over the detention? I assume, like Casey has a commander over the jail, you have some employee of the detention center that runs the day-to-day operations. So what responsibilities do you have as a presiding judge?
There is. So with juveniles, it's different. They have to be separated from the adult population. Obviously, they can't see them or hear them. It's a totally separate model. Arizona's gone to a rehabilitative model, so there are teachers in the juvenile detention facility, medical people. What they're trying to do is, because a lot of these kids don't have positive role models, is trying to have positive role models, and again, a rehabilitative model that encourages them when they go back into their environment that they try to make progress and stay out of juvenile detention. So there are a lot of personnel involved, and those personnel report to me to tell me how the kids are doing in there. I think our average per night is about 10 juveniles in our facility right now. And
What's the average stay with them? I mean, are they staying there long, or
it's not that long. No, I think it's between 3 and 10 days usually. So.
And to help offset the cost, you guys contract out to other entities to house their juveniles, don't you?
Yeah, so Apache County sends their juveniles to Navajo County, which fiscally I think is a good thing for Navajo County because we charge them for that, and I'm not sure exactly how many we get from Apache County. I think say for every 10 of our kids in Navajo County, there are about 3 from Apache County.
And we also get some BIA or Bureau of Indian Affairs juveniles too, right?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know those numbers yet.
And your detention center costs, for the most part, are fixed. If you got 1 kid or 10 kids in a pod, it's pretty much the same cost, except for small incidentals like meals and laundry, I would assume.
Right, because you have to have the staff I was talking about earlier to service those kids. As you said, whether there's 1 or 10 in there, you've got to have the same staff 24 hours a day.
So it makes a lot of sense then to help bring in additional revenue by housing these kids at really no additional cost.
It does, yeah.
And you're talking about these rehabilitation philosophy and out of sight and hearing of adults. Are those things that you and presiding judges before you decided, or are those requirements or mandates from other sources?
Yeah, those are Supreme Court guidelines again, and so we have to implement those. That's, again, a function of the judicial branch, is to implement the Supreme Court's vision for the different systems.
So if you wanted to change those, you couldn't?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I know is recently you lost your 2 pretrial services employees, and those are those that will monitor those who had been in jail that are released before a determination is made on guilt or innocence. Are you going to continue that program? Do you think it was financially sound and worthwhile, or do you not know yet?
Yeah, we're looking into that. We're studying it right now. The value in that service was they would come to court and give us a report on the person's criminal background and failures to appear in the past, and whether or not they were a good risk to release or if they were a danger to society. So I could look at that piece of paper with the lawyers arguing each way for release or not release, and that would give me some guideline. In the olden days, back before pretrial services, the prosecutor would have all that information and could give it to you, the criminal history and failures to appear, pretty much the same thing. And so, at least for now, what we're doing is we're having probation do the pretrial services reports, and that's about to start. Our 2 pretrial services officers just retired about 10 days ago.
Back in January.
Yeah.
You're also involved in drug court, aren't you?
Yes. So I've been the presiding drug court judge for 5 years. 5 years next month now. And I think, again, that's a rehabilitative model where we're trying to take somebody who has an addiction problem and these are victimless crimes, and help them establish good habits so they can go out into society with a job and coping mechanisms if they have urges to use again. They have people they can call and different resources to go to so that hopefully they don't use again. And if they have a job and keeping busy and they've got these tools that they've learned in drug court, we're hoping we get more productive citizens. And our recidivist rate in drug court is less than it is if you just took the same people and put them in prison for 2 or 2.5 years, 3 years. We have a pretty good success rate in drug court. Of course, we have some failures, but we do have at least, I think it's about 65% success rate in drug court.
So you presiding judge plus drug court presiding judge and then judge. Have you gotten a raise or?
No, that's one thing. This is volunteer stuff. So in terms of when you take on extra duties like administrative duties, no, it's the same salary no matter what. So, but I think it's good, especially I had a goal or a vision for our county to have more services in South County. So it makes it worthwhile for me to, see that through.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to tell us about what's going on in the judicial system? One of those areas that is, how do people find resources if they can't afford a lawyer but need to maybe file a divorce paperwork or a guardianship or things of that nature? Is there somebody that can help them?
Yeah, they can come to the courthouse and we have a kiosk with all the different forms. They can go to the court administrative offices and find those, or just ask the clerk where it is. And so for example, with probate, or that's the most common one, or divorces where they don't have a lawyer, they can get all those forms right there at the county. You can also find them online.
Okay.
When did we get that? I didn't know we had that.
It's been there the 5 years I've been there. I'm not sure how long they've been doing that at the county, but also online, you can go to Maricopa County side. All the forms are there. Of course, you've got to change it to Navajo County, but it's all there.
I guess I haven't been in court enough, so I would have seen that.
Which is good.
It's good.
Well, Bob, thank you for joining us. We appreciate
Thank you for
taking
having me.
time.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey, and stay tuned for this month's Most Wanted.